Welcome to Coffee and Conversations for Men, a podcast where two men, Jay Guy,
Brian Jones,
sit down to share their stories of struggles, successes, and everything in between as they navigate the ups and downs of life.
Each episode will dive into topics men are curious about as it relates to their fitness, nutrition, relationships, mental health, and lifelong learning. If you're looking for real talk, honest discussions, and practical advice, you're in the right place.
So grab your coffee, sit back, and join us for some candid conversations that will inspire, motivate, and remind you that you are not alone on this journey. So let's get started. In this episode of Coffee and Conversations for Men, we're joined by a global voice in education and emotional intelligence, Mark Sparvell. Mark is the author of Good Brain, Bad Brain.
He's the ambassador for the Emotional Intelligence Society and founder of SAL in Education Communities, which has over 30,000 members focused on social emotional learning.
Wow. He is a global Be Well from Microsoft, where he is a global director and, like many of us men, balancing life, work in a demanding and sometimes turbulent times.
He speaks widely on topics of emotional intelligence in the workplace and workforce development in the age of AI.
And in our conversation, Mark breaks down why we so often get hijacked by outdated brain habits and how emotional intelligence can help us outsmart our own thoughts and how rewiring our brain might be simpler than you think.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
All right, we'll dive right into this. Mark, we've got your book here, and both Jay and I have read it, extremely impressed, but we really want to know what motivated you to write this book.
Great. Well, first of all, thanks both of you for inviting me onto the podcast. I love listening to it, and I think, you're having important conversations around the things that matter most at the moment, which really is part of the reason why I wrote the book. I've been working around this space of positive psychology for 30 years. I've had a chance to interview lots of people a lot smarter than me, developmental molecular biologists and psychologists and psychiatrists, social workers and neuroscientists, and people that work in conflict areas around the globe. And along the way, I just thought, there's some wisdom in here that I think could be boiled down and could be made accessible for everybody. So that's what drove me really to share the insights. I use this quote: if you take from one person, it's stealing. If you take from lots of people, it's research. So this is my research contribution.
Wow, Mark, you can consider that stolen.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Wow.
So that's good. Well, one of the questions we're really curious about is
you said, okay, so you said in your book, our brains are wired for survival and not success. Can you unpack that a little bit for us? The idea of how to subtly shape our day-to-day decisions without us even knowing about it.
Right, yeah, absolutely. I think Michael Fullan says in the opening to the book that, our brains organize us a lot more than we think we organize our brains. So think about this. Our brains have changed 10% over the last 50,000 years. 10%. In fact, some researchers suggest they've got a little bit smaller, a little bit more complex, but a little bit smaller. Along the way, that 10% change has allowed us to walk on 2 feet. It's allowed us to predict. It's allowed us to imagine. It's allowed us to navigate a 3-dimensional world. So it has changed. But think about how much the world has changed in 50,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
Our brains have changed 10%.
Yeah.
And our brains evolved just with one primary objective, if you like, their number one bit of software, which was survival, keep us alive. Not these days to help us thrive in model lives, but to keep us alive. So in my book, I talk about how our ancestors, for example, had to constantly scan the horizon for threats like predators. Not only that, they also developed this capacity to imagine the worst. In fact, today, 90% of your daily thoughts are negative. There's a reason for that. Not because we're all pessimistic, but because our survival-oriented brain was looking for threats, and then it was imagining them to be really bad. The worst case scenario, saber-toothed tiger is going to come into the cave and eat me and my family. So we tend to exaggerate in our minds. We scan the horizon for threats. We exaggerate the intensity and the duration of those threats because we're hardwired for survival. These days, some of those threats are like scanning our inbox for criticism, or fixating on a negative comment in a meeting, or procrastinating over a hard task. So, for example, I needed to prepare my mid-year review and I kept putting it off, cleaning my sock drawer, finding a snack, pacing around the house.
Oh my God.
It turns out that's the symptom of a survival brain, because I'd convinced myself it was a threat to me. It's going to be tedious and hard. I'm going to be exposed and vulnerable. So my survival brain starts running in the background going, okay, going to help you run away from this, going to help you do a pile of other things. So unless we become conscious of what our brain is trying to achieve and develop strategies to help us navigate it, we run the risk constantly of being hijacked by a survival-oriented brain. Great 50,000 years ago, sometimes not so great in 2025.
So the settings have changed, but the wiring still remains the same. That makes sense.
Yeah, we can be triggered, easily. So, and often this is running in our subconscious, unless we've engaged in some very intentional development of strategies and ways of thinking. What tends to happen is we react from, a survival-oriented brain, which, wants to do a few things. It wants to protect us, it wants us to gather, and it wants us to defend. These are the basis for human motivation: to acquire, to defend, and to protect.
Now, Mark, has there been what was the shift in your thinking? Was there a turning point or experience in your life that you realized that your brain was running on, outdated software?
Yeah, it certainly needs an upgrade all of the time. And I guess I want to say this at an outset. Number one, yes, there was a moment in time. Let me just go back one click. I called the book Good Brain, Bad Brain to be intentionally a little bit provocative. And I say right in the opening, the truth is there's not a good brain, bad brain. There's helpful thoughts, and there's at times unhelpful thoughts, and all emotions serve a purpose and matter. But here's an example from the workplace. Early in my leadership career, I noticed that whenever it came to feedback, a review cycle, I always felt defensive and I felt anxious all the time, like I was under threat. But I didn't realize it at the time. But I look back now and realize, boy, I was just really defensive and really stressed. It felt like a personal attack, even when it wasn't. That's when I realized my brain was tagging those situations as a threat. I was labeling them as a threat, not as a gift. And let's be honest, sometimes feedback is a gift wrapped in sandpaper. It's not always in pleasant surrounds. But I was running Brain 1.0 survival software, and in a Brain 2.0 world, I practice things like a meta moment where I pause before I'm going into a review and I ask myself, what would my best self do in this situation? How might I navigate my thoughts and the conversation? How do I approach this with clarity and less reactivity, and in fact start to anticipate it as an opportunity to learn and grow? And the more we reframe the narrative in our own head, the more we reframe our reality.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Goodness.
Okay, so you say we can rewire our brains. Now, I know that a lot of people feel stuck in patterns and the way things are, but what's your response to those who feel like it's like it's too hard or it's too late to rewire your brain.
Yeah, or that it's always been this way.
Yeah.
A couple of things. The first bit, if we look back at our 50,000-year-old lump of fat and water basically sitting on top of our head, it's got enough processing power for about 500,000 Xboxes. Can generate enough electricity to keep a light globe going. Yes. You're a highly electrified, amazing machine. Your brain is built for change. You've got more neurons in the brain than there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy. Think about that.
Wow.
You have got the most incredible thinking machine running on as wetware on top of your neck. So neuroplasticity, the ability for the brain to rebuild itself, for our thoughts to reimagine itself, is real. So people that feel that they're stuck in their thoughts, one thing is this: emotional intelligence is a skill that can be taught, can be learned at any stage in life. Things are certainly different as our brain ages. So when we get to about 25, I think it's the hippocampus at the front largely sets itself, it's why small kids are a lot more creative. So we need to think about brain aging and developmental phases as we deal with working with adults. But the one truth is the brain is highly plastic and can reform itself. And people that feel that they're stuck sometimes just haven't had the opportunity to develop some really simple strategies to unstick themselves. Like I said, all emotions matter and serve a purpose. But the problem is when we're stuck in a particular emotional state and we don't have a strategy to shift ourselves. If I'm feeling despondent, if I'm feeling frustrated, and I think, look, I want to shift to where I'm feeling just quietly complacent, or I'm feeling calm. That's all I want. I don't want to go to ecstatic. That's too much of a reach. I want to just be calm, or I want to feel a little bit more confident, or I want to feel a little bit more optimistic, sort of low-level positive emotions. How do I get from stuck in frustration or rage? How do I get to feeling calm? The challenge is the strategies that bridge from where you may be to where you would prefer to be.
That's a great answer.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Wow.
Now, just to make sure we're all on the same page when it comes to emotional intelligence, when you're speaking as a keynote and you're working with educators around the world, how do you define emotional intelligence? Just so we can make sure our listeners know exactly where we're coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not about cheesecloth pants and sandalwood incense and yoga mat. It's also not about smiley face stickers for everybody. Developing emotional intelligence is not an inoculation for challenging times, but it has been scientifically proven to reduce the trauma and the stress and the damage of unpleasant times when you have developed emotional intelligence. And happy to share some of that as a follow-up in your podcast notes for people if they're interested. At its highest level, emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize first of all that there is an emotion that you're experiencing, pausing and thinking and recognizing it. It's also about the next step, which is understanding what internally or externally is causing this. So this is a lot of self-reflection here. The third step is critical. It's accurately labeling that emotion accurately. Is it jealousy or is it envy? Is it sadness? Is it misery? Is it unhappiness? Is it frustration? Is it a combination of two? Is Brian feeling both excited because it's his birthday and apprehensive because he's organised a party and he's not sure if everybody's going to arrive? So we can feel multiple emotions at once. Often a better question to ask people is, what are some of the emotions you're feeling right now, as opposed to how are you feeling? Because it can be hard to label. So we've covered recognize, understand, label. The fourth step for emotional intelligence is being able to express in a positive and a helpful way the emotion you're feeling. It's the classic, I'm feeling overwhelmed because there are so many asks of me at the moment, and I really want to feel that I'm on top of this. I want to feel confident in my ability to deliver. Or, I'm feeling pressured for time, which is making me feel stressed, and I've been snappy at the moment, and so on. So being able to, not positively as in, toxic positively, but positive in a way that leads to a positive outcome. And the last step, the biggest step, all of that stuff, recognize, understand, label, express, is good, but at no point is it useful unless you can regulate. That's the last step. Mm-hmm. So regulating emotions doesn't mean dismissing, discounting, diminishing, or denying. There's 4 Ds. Mm-hmm. That was hard work.
Yeah.
Regulation doesn't mean doing that, but regulation means being able to take into account what's happening, who you're with, the situation, and modify what you think and what you say and do accordingly. Nobody wants you laughing hysterically at a funeral. Right. And, sometimes we're sitting in a meeting and we need to control ourselves from rolling our eyes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is an agenda about self-awareness and self-regulation. Mm-hmm. Absolutely critical skills, certainly for these busy days that we all live in, where there's multiple demands on us all of the time.
Mm-hmm. No, Mark, that's something that I struggle with is identifying the feeling that I have. And I found that your feeling wheel, the Gloria Wilcox designed wheel that you have on page 64, really helpful for me because realizing that there's just more than joyful, powerful, peaceful, sad, mad, scared, and moving on from there. So that's been a really helpful strategy for me to actually identify it so I can name it.
Yeah, there's Professor Mark Brackett from the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence has the line in his book, Permission to Feel, that you have to name it to tame it. Mm-hmm. So if you can't accurately label, it becomes challenging then to be able to move on. As we call it developing emotional granularity. We need to be constantly developing our emotional vocabulary, getting it more refined, more accurate for us. Because in doing that, you're able to articulate, you're able to explain with a lot more granularity how you're feeling. You also get better at reading other people, and through questioning, start to understand the emotions that are driving them. I work in education, have done for 30 years, like yourself, Mr. Jones. And, one thing I know that is true for adults we work with in whatever business we're in, or with our families or as a teacher, is this: emotions are the gatekeeper. They're the gatekeeper to how we think and cognition. They're the gatekeeper to where we invest our time and energy and drive us to what we do, motivation and attention. Emotions are the gatekeeper to motivation, attention, and cognition, how we think. So it's critical for all of us to develop emotional intelligence so we can be more like an emotion scientist and less like an emotion judge. Because we can look at somebody in our workplace and think, Jay's in a bad mood today. It's quite possible he's not. He's just got resting grumpy face.
All the time.
He's just for a moment in time distracted with a thought. Humans are notoriously bad at guessing how other people feel. They think they're good at it, and they're bad at it because we cover our emotions. It might be a cultural bias. It might be as a result of a previous experience. So you see this as an educator in schools all of the time when a teacher trots a child into the principal's office and says, Daniel's being rude. He's like staring and smirking. He's not. He's embarrassed. But he's embarrassed because he's been singled out to ask a question, and his unconscious reaction is to grimace.
Right.
And teacher reads that as insolence.
Yeah.
It's a classic example where, like I say in my book, you can't believe everything you think. You can't believe everything you see.
Right.
A great answer. Great answer. Honestly, your book, it offers so many great strategies and so many practical strategies. And all your answers just now were incredible. If our listeners took one thing away from this conversation today, what would you hope that would be?
Okay, so I think it would be the tagline on the book, which is, you can't believe everything you think, because our survival-oriented brains are in the background, guiding our actions and our reactions. They're influencing what we see around the world, where we, as I said, direct our attention, where we fire up motivation, how we process information. And at times, you just can't trust it. So we need to develop. So it would be, you can't believe everything you think. But then the second part of that is emotional intelligence can be taught and caught at any stage in life. And the book, as you pointed out, has got 20 strategies. I say to people, you would want to have at least 10 strategies that you can list off on each finger that help you navigate emotional states. If you don't, you know what happens? Your brain starts to feel out of control. And here's one thing that neuroscience tells us. Our brains, our beautiful, big, juicy brains, are designed for stress. They actually love it. We're designed for it. Jay and, both of you have rocked up here today. The chances of you both being here, us being here for this podcast with Brian and Jay and Mark, is 1 in 4 trillion. Wow. That's how many random encounters have happened over 50,000 years.
Wow.
As people survived, your ancestors survived famine and flood and pestilence and environmental changes, and passed on their DNA, hopefully in consensual manners, over generations and generations. To bring you here right now, you've got the DNA of survivors running through you. So people that are listening, they need to think of those. I guess there's 3 things. One is, you can't believe everything you think. The other is, your brain is remarkable and plastic. And the third thing is the fact that you're incredibly lucky to be here right now. You've got the DNA of survivors in your system. So as hard as things are, you've got the tools to help you move forwards and flourish.
Wow. Mark, that's incredible. Honest to God, that's incredible.
Just, if people want to find you, to book you, to reserve you, to network with you, what's the easiest way for them to contact you?
Yeah, good question. We're just putting up a new site at the moment. The best way would probably be just to reach out to me through LinkedIn or one of the social platforms. I'm easy to find on there. Happy to share my sparvell@gmail.com address. People can reach out there. But coming up in the next few months, we'll be launching marksparvell.com, which will be specifically for just to manage the number of requests coming through to talk to different organizations around, how do you unlock motivation? How do you deal with big emotions in the workplace? How do we contribute to a positive, flourishing culture in our organization by leveraging what science tells us about the brain and its capacity to rewire itself? So that would be the easiest way. At the moment, there's lots of ways to reach me, but I'll make sure you've got some for your show notes.
Now, I mean, you've done a lot of work with the AI too that we haven't addressed here. Just where's the energy right now for you when it comes to AI?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, I like to look at the research. So the new future of work research that came out recently, plus also the word work World Trends Index that was launched in Davos in Switzerland at the start of the year, interestingly, both called out one thing. One of the skills that's critical to remain flourishing in an AI-powered economy is emotional intelligence. In fact, in the Work Trends Index, they listed 7 critical skills. The first 5 were fundamentally human and included analytical reasoning, creative judgment, cognitive flexibility, and emotional intelligence. I kind of always use this line in my keynotes. We can send smart scientists to Mars. They can build a smart habitat and they can all gather there and do their smart things. If they can't get along with one another, it's going to be a really horrible 19 months. And, the purpose of space exploration isn't to make humans miserable on every planet in the galaxy. That's not the end game here. But as I said at the start, emotional intelligence is way more than making people happy. In fact, unhappiness and unpleasant emotions, as I said, serve important purposes. At times we need to feel guilty. At times we need to feel sad. At times we need to feel frustrated. This is part of the human condition. It's part of what makes us unique and wonderful alongside the pleasant emotion. So that's where toxic positivity is a red flag, because it ignores or diminishes the fact that the total human experience includes unpleasant and pleasant emotions. But like I said, sometimes those unpleasant emotions are gifts wrapped up in sandpaper. They're still gifts.
Wow.
Great.
Well, just before we wrap up, we always have one question that we ask all our guests who come on the podcast. And the question is, what is one thing you would like to tell your younger self if you knew what you know now?
Ooh, that's a juicy one. Okay, let me ponder that one for a second. My younger self, what would I tell that I know today? I would say to my younger self that you are much more capable than you realize.
Wow.
I love that.
Good.
Wow.
Good.
Wow.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us today. And what our plan is now, after we hang up, Mark and Jay and I are going to go through the recording again. And then we're going to apply it to our 5 pillars that we have here in the podcast of fitness, nutrition, mental health, relationships, and lifelong learning. So that's where the next half of the podcast will go. So thanks again for joining us.
No worries. I got to say, Brian, I just love the fact you said when we hang up. That was very retro.
And we will be when we hang up.
Instead of saying log off.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Anyway, it's been a pleasure to connect.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I like listening. Listening every now and then. I drop in and have a look at the titles and the topics. I'm loving the creative that's being used on social to kind of promote the podcast. I think that's really catchy. Some of those, especially where you're positioning the podcast in all these kind of crazy public places and on different things. I kind of looked at that and I thought that's cool. Yeah. You've got a nice dynamic. It's a good vibe and a good look. I think you're onto something.
Thanks for giving up part of your lunchtime today
thank you for
us.
Your time. Perfect.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you, Mark.
Bye.
Take care.
Wow. What a powerful conversation with Mark.
Was it ever?
You know what? Before we debrief any further, I need to go make a coffee here. Okay?
I wouldn't disagree with that at all.
Okay. We'll be right back. Hey, Jay, what's in your cup today?
Oh, let me tell you what's in my cup. So today I'm drinking a flavor called Enchanted Grounds.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Where's it from?
From a place called Fabled Bean. It's a little place in Coburg. And the tasting notes for this one is raspberry, blueberry, and dark chocolate.
Ooh.
Oh, it's so good. It's actually
good.
Yeah, it's so good.
Good.
Yeah, it smells amazing. How about yourself? What's
mine's
yours?
incredible. I tried a new coffee shop today,
Okay,
right beside where I got my haircut.
Yeah.
It's called Aves Coffee Company.
Okay.
And it's all the coffee blends that are in there are
Mhm.
named after birds. So this is Barn Owl Espresso.
No kidding. After birds.
And this
Okay.
was the coffee
That's
notes.
neat.
It was chocolate, cherry, fig, brown sugar. It's a premium blend, dark roast.
Wow.
And it's very good.
Oh wow.
And this company, this couple that owns it,
Uh-huh.
of course, they're into sustainability and bird conservation.
Mhm, mhm.
But they're combining their love for coffee. So
Wow,
good for
that's
them.
awesome.
Good for
Yeah.
them. Just opened in 2020, I think it was. So it's
Wow.
relatively young.
Well, cheers,
So
my
cheers.
friend.
Let's
Here's
get
to
into
another
it.
episode.
All right, we're back now. Now, Jay, what we want to do right now is connect our 5 pillars,
Mhm.
our fitness, nutrition, mental health, relationships, and lifelong learning,
Mhm.
to what Mark told us
Mhm.
related to his book,
Correct.
so that we make that connection and alignment, and so that we can move forward. So,
Yeah.
so let's just let's just start with fitness.
Mhm.
Based on what Mark said,
Mhm.
what was an aha for you that relates to fitness?
So right off the top, I can relate to what he was saying about your brain and sabotage and how it sabotages you sometimes, and how things are, from doing hard. Oh, it's going to be hard, and how he talked about doing going for the review, and it's going to be hard, and it's going to be strenuous, and it's going to be stressful. Like, let's just not do it. I can relate to that with talking myself out of a workout, and I know that. You know what? I'll just skip it for tonight. It's already late enough. Blah blah blah. Well, I work out from 9 to 10 at night, and it could be 7 minutes after 9, and I'm already trying to talk myself out of a workout. Sometimes my energy's not there, and I know it's going to be a hard workout, so I'll try to talk myself out of it. And that's that sabotage that he's talking about. That's that flight. You're like, no, run away. It's going to be hard. And I can totally relate to what he's saying about your brain is trying to sabotage you. And so forcing yourself to do that hard stuff, like he's saying, is rewiring that brain, is
Right.
rewiring that train of thought.
Yeah. The same thing works with doing reps. And if
Correct.
you're lifting weights,
Yeah.
as long as you got the right posture,
Mhm.
you're in position, you're ready to go. And you say, "Yep, I'm done my 3 reps
Mhm.
that I'm going to be doing, or 4 reps, and that's it for today."
Yeah.
Instead of giving her.
Yeah, it's true enough. And what a lot of the times, you get to a certain rep count, and you're like,
Uh-huh.
well, that was close enough.
I know.
That was hard enough.
know.
That's close enough.
Yeah.
So instead of, like you say, giving it your all,
Yeah.
and going for it, right? I can completely relate to how we sabotage ourselves. Even just small things like that in the gym.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
in the back of your head. It's gonna be tough, man.
Yeah.
Let's just skip that.
It happens to me in the pool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm doing laps
Yeah.
and think, okay, 50 minutes is up. I'm just, that's fine.
Mm.
And yet I could still do 2 more, 3 more laps.
Yeah.
But I've convinced myself, yeah,
I've done enough.
I've done enough.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, moving on to the nutrition part of our pillar. What do you have that's relatable to that, Brian?
Well, I keep going back to what Mark said about the hippocampus
Mhm.
of our brain, and it's
Mhm.
highly plastic, and it's built to change and can evolve. And sometimes I get stuck
Mhm.
in my thinking,
Mhm.
and relate to food binging,
Okay.
or spontaneously eating. If I start something, I just can't. I watch my hand put the food into my mouth.
You had mentioned that before.
I know. So I'll give you an example. Last night we were at a restaurant,
Mhm.
and I will order things spontaneously. I'll have an appetizer, and then there's bread, and then there's a cocktail or a drink, and then there's the main meal, and someone else will walk by with their food, and I'll go, "Oh, what are they having?" Next thing I know, I've ordered way too much, and I'm ordering the wrong stuff.
Mhm.
So my strategy
Mhm.
that I have
Mhm.
right now, and I'm glad he talked about putting strategies in place to be unstuck, to unlearn what you were doing. For me, I went online before we went to the restaurant, and I went over the menu when I was not hungry, and decided, "Ooh, I want to try that. Ooh, that looks interesting." And I had this delicious cod with peanut sauce over rice and veg, and it was delicious.
Yeah.
It was healthy.
Yeah.
It was nutritious. And I could have easily got sidetracked if I hadn't made up my mind before attending this restaurant
Yeah.
by ordering, ooh, that appetizer looks amazing. And I think I'll order this and I'll order that.
Mhm.
So
Or like you
I
say,
stayed.
what are they having?
Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
yeah.
If it takes time, but by focusing on some strategies to break the habit, and I can be successful in that area. What about you?
Good for you. I am going to. Oh man, I'm going to share another little J Guy nugget. I am. So when I was younger, we used to go out on every time we went somewhere. Every time we went out for dinner, I used to order chicken strips
All the time?
all the time.
All the time.
No,
Regardless
all
what,
the time.
Regardless of what restaurant.
Didn't matter.
It didn't matter.
All the time.
Why? Why?
That's embarrassing. So I'll tell you why. Because I used to get so overwhelmed by the menu. I used to get so overwhelmed by all of the options that when the waiter or the waitress would come back to the table, I'd be in panic mode and I wouldn't be able to decide. So besides the dyslexia stuff and, like reading the menus, a lot of the times, they word things, you don't know what it is. And I was too embarrassed to ask what it is.
Right.
And so by default, I would always just panic and be like, I'll have the chicken strips. And I can remember when we were dating, my wife and I we went out and she would say, like, why do you always order chicken strips? And I'm like, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with chicken strips, right? But the truth is, I would just get overwhelmed and I would panic and I would revert to chicken strips.
Okay, so based on what Mark said,
yes.
How did you change that thinking? How did you rewire your brain?
So I
cannot order the chicken strips.
I can say that I haven't ordered chicken strips in a very long time, but I had to, like, I'm glad he said that because I had to rewire my brain to be able to either ask, hey, what's it, babe? Do you know what this is? Do you know what that says? Do you know what this is? Or have you had this before? And I've had to learn how to say to the server or the waitress or the waiter, I'm going to need another minute. I really just can't decide yet. I need another minute. And not feel bad that I need another minute because I haven't decided yet. Instead of being in a panic state where it's like, you got any chicken strips? So I've really had to rewire, like he says, I really had to rewire that behavior and get what I want instead of just going back to the chicken strips because I know that's a default behavior.
Right. And what you've done based on what Mark said is you named the emotion you had.
Yeah.
To tame it.
Yeah.
To move on, to take a breath and say, okay, this is what I need to do next.
Yes. And I had mentioned in a previous episode, myself and my therapist have this thing called name it to tame it. So when he said that tonight in his conversation with us, I was like, I know exactly what he's talking about. Yeah. It's amazing that it came up.
Yeah. That's what I'm working on.
It takes a lot of work.
I know. Okay, Jay, moving on from chicken strips, chicken nuggets, let's go on to mental health.
Oh, man.
And take, I know some stuff you're dealing with and some stuff that I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
How can we relate it to what he talked about when it comes to men's mental health?
Okay, so, great question. So he has, in chapter 9 in his book, he has a great example of a strategy of mindfulness. And he talks about being mindful, and he talks about how to create a strategy for being mindful. So if you're in your headspace and you're firing all the time, and he talks about in the book, he talks about your thoughts wander. And I had talked about I call it chatter. He calls it wandering. I call it chatter. And like it doesn't stop. It doesn't shut off. And I had talked about the negative chatter like in previous episodes and how it's just constantly there in the background, right? So you have to be mindful of this chatter. And so I have worked very, very hard on controlling my negative chatter, my negative thoughts, the negative self-talk in my head. And that's where the mindfulness comes in, is where because like I said, the chatter doesn't stop. So it's still there. But what I do is I control the negative narrative. I control the negative thought patterns and now I can recognize them and when they pop up, and I know how to control them now. So that the chatter doesn't stop. I just know how to control the narrative in those thought patterns so that I'm not always in a negative headspace anymore.
Okay.
So, and that like goes back to his book where it's, you have to be mindful and put strategies in place. So when your head does wander, because it will, and look at, for example, look when you drive. You know how many thoughts you go through while you're driving along? We all say like, oh, geez, I left home and I don't even know how I got here. I don't even remember driving here. It's because your brain wandered on 50 different things and then you got to your destination.
Right.
So same thing. So this mindfulness. And so through therapy, we call it the 10-second pause. So you're in a train of thought and you have this 10-second pause in between thoughts where you bring yourself back to the present moment. Out of that thought, you bring yourself back to the present moment. And before you go into another wander, there's 10 seconds where you've just processed what you've just thought about or like he said, wander through.
Okay.
And there's this 10-second pause to unpack what you just did before your brain wanders off again out of the present.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And that's that's that 10-second pause of mindfulness.
Yeah. Okay.
And that goes back to what you're saying about this CBT.
Yeah.
Where you have to like cognitively be aware of what you are thinking.
Right.
And change that narrative if it's a problem.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So
good.
I can relate to that chapter in that book.
Oh yeah.
How about yourself?
Well, it's interesting. The strategy he has here in the book, and it's strategy number 10.
Okay.
And it has to do with the WHOOP strategy, HOP. And WHOOP stands for W, wish, O, outcome, O, obstacle, and P, plan. So if I think of things that are just overwhelming for me, or my brain has convinced myself that it can't be done, I think of a wish. Okay, so I'll give you a concrete example. Well, the way he describes wish is to identify a wish or a goal that's important. Your outcome is imagine the best possible outcome of fulfilling that wish.
Yeah.
And the obstacle is identify the main inner obstacle that stands in the way of that wish. And then P is make a plan on how to overcome that obstacle. So if I look at it personally, I have a wish of writing a book sometime in the future.
Yep.
And I want it to be a virtual book because as soon as I put it on paper, it's obsolete after it's published. So if I do it virtually, then it constantly can be updated. And I want it to revolve around my bucket list items. So that's a wish. And the outcome is to have a record of all the bucket list adventures that I've had in my since retiring after I went through this huge identity crisis. I didn't know who I was. So that's the outcome. However, the obstacle, I keep putting blocks up that I'm too old to do this. I'm not even in other authors' league. I'm not intelligent enough to do this. I don't have the time to do this.
Right.
All of these different obstacles. And then I'm thinking, if I really want to do this, I need to overcome these obstacles. And by using the strategy that he suggested, is to come up with a plan to overcome the obstacles. It's not a plan necessarily to complete the task. It's the plan to overcome the obstacles so I can complete the task.
That makes sense.
So it's chapter at a time.
Yeah.
So if each chapter has to do with a different bucket list item, and then some of those chapters may only be a page long.
Yep.
Some are 4 pages long. Who knows? I don't know yet.
Right.
But I need to workshop this. I need to plan this out. So I'm speaking at a conference the beginning of September, actually, and it's a 3-day conference, and they want 3 different workshops, presentations. One's a keynote, and then 2 other follow-up workshops later on in the weekend that relate to our bucket list of adventures that I've experienced. So I'm going to workshop the book.
Right,
basically,
Yep.
To see how this goes. So with his strategy that Mark mentions on page 87, the WHOOP strategy, that I want to wish, set the outcome, look at the obstacles, and make a plan. So by doing that, hopefully my whole mental health, it will stop this negative spiraling that I have.
Wow. Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes.
That's a solid strategy.
I don't know. And because I put myself out there online, Okay, you come back and ask
Yeah.
me.
Absolutely. Good luck.
All right. So moving on to relationships.
Mhm.
Based on what Mark said,
Mhm.
how does this apply to you?
So, well, if you've listened to enough of these episodes, you will know that I've spent the better part of 2 years learning how to regulate my emotions. Like Mark says, learning how to identify, learning how to regulate, learning how to name those emotions, and learning how to be in those emotions. It's all well and good to know how you're feeling, but if you're only naming them to get the hell out of there, run away, start the car, you're running away from those emotions.
Right.
You're not actually learning how to sit in those emotions and deal with it and learn how to navigate through those emotions. And he goes back to saying about the 4Ds.
Which is dismissing,
Yes.
discounting, diminishing, and denying.
Correct. And so if you're doing any of those things, if you're denying what you're feeling, if you're
Right.
denying that emotion, or you're
Right.
denying the behavior that you have that surrounds that emotion, which
Yeah.
I do all the time. I deny the emotions that I have around certain subjects or around certain behaviors that I have. I just can't admit X, Y, or Z
Right.
that I do as a behavior. Then I'm missing the key point.
Yes.
Like he says, it's all well and good to be able to recognize those behaviors and name them. Great. But I have no idea how to sit in them.
Yeah.
I'm learning that. I'm still learning that to be
it's
a better partner, father, and friend.
Yeah. And so am I.
Yeah.
Identifying the emotions is really hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad I made reference to the feeling wheel that he's put in his book. Because it's an area that I didn't realize was a deficit for me.
Mm-hmm.
My last therapy session, after it was over, the therapist always, says, "So what's the big aha after this past hour, Brian?"
Yeah.
And so I usually describe the big aha of what I want to take away. And so then I thought, well, I'm a mentor coach. I'll just turn the tables here. So I said, okay, you've been listening to me for an hour here. And I know there's another client that's out in the hall waiting to come in for his next appointment or her next appointment.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have likely about 30 seconds to go over to your notepad or however you keep your notes. And you're going to write down a sentence or something about this past hour.
Mm-hmm.
For you, what's the biggest aha that you're going to take away from this past hour of spending it with me?
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to write down so that you'll remember again in a couple of weeks when I come back? And he said, F, F, F. And I said, what's that? And he says, feel your friggin' feelings, Jones. Because I'm not. I don't name it so I can tame it. So it's interesting that my therapist picked up on that Mark's advocating that, certainly in his book, and that you've been working on it.
Try to work. Jeez. Yeah, I'm still learning how to do that.
Why is it so hard?
I don't know. Honestly, if I figure it out, I'll let you know.
Oh, okay.
But I honestly don't know, and I think maybe because it's hard. Maybe that's just it. Maybe it's just that simple. Maybe it's because it's hard. Maybe it's because it's difficult to sit in those emotions. Maybe it's just that simple. And we have a hard time naming it to tame it and then sitting in it and dealing with it. So, rather than just name it. Oh, okay.
I don't even name it. I just move on.
Even name it. I learned to honestly, you know how you love that feeling wheel?
Yeah.
My therapist and myself, it's overwhelming for me. Yeah. It's too overwhelming. So when we first started talking about the feelings wheel, and she would say, "Look on the feelings wheel." Well, I'm like, I can't. That's just overwhelming. Yeah. It bothers me. Yeah. It bothers me. So now
if chicken strips were on that feeling wheel, you would pick it right away.
Oh God, yeah. Then it would just be what dipping sauce. But yeah, and so she turned it from an overwhelming thing, like, okay, so there's so many options on the feeling wheel, right?
For sure.
There's so many different colors on the feeling wheel. So she took it from the wheel, and instead of it being presented to me,
right,
and me having to choose what's on the wheel, she allows me to sit with it. All right, well, tell me, run through what you're feeling, run through how you like, what words pop out, what are you feeling right now?
And name it so you can move on.
Yeah, just name it.
And deal with it.
Yeah.
And dig deep.
Name it so we can talk about it.
Yeah. So your relationships can improve as a dad, as a colleague,
as a husband,
as a spouse.
Yeah.
It's so important.
Yeah, and I'm learning, and it's hard though.
Yeah. Oh, is it ever?
Okay, Brian. Moving on to our last pillar, lifelong learning. This has just been a fantastic conversation with Mark, and I completely relate to a lot of what he's saying. I completely relate
me too.
to the strategies, to all of the things that he's saying. And when I first saw the where it says you can rewire your brain, I was like, what? The concept just didn't even seem like it was possible, but you can.
Yeah.
And not even that you can, you do it without even knowing it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And so many different levels in your life as you walk through it, you do it without even knowing it. And for myself, I would have to just keep advocating, much like Mark. I would keep advocating for mental health awareness, and the willingness to keep challenging yourself to be better, do better, and keep challenging yourself to bring mental awareness as far as you can.
You have to.
Yeah, you really do.
For your own sanity.
Yeah.
For me, it is, and he has this on the cover of his book. You can't believe everything you think.
Mm-hmm.
So it means some unlearning to do.
Yep.
And it's that unlearning is a term that was new to me, to understand. Okay, so what is part of me as Brian? What habits do I have? What values do I have? And what do I have to question and back up and rewire the brain? That's so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, honestly, and that goes back to the strategies of acknowledgement and not denying.
Yeah. Just be curious.
There's stuff to
Just be curious.
Yes, I love that. Just be curious with mental health. What works for you doesn't always work for the next person. No, so you have to constantly be curious.
And
with
what works
health.
Monday may not work Tuesday.
Oh, I love that.
And what works in the morning may not work in the afternoon. So that's okay.
And that's okay. Yeah.
Have you a repertoire of strategies that you can pull from for your own sanity to make you the best possible version?
Yeah, like Mark
yourself.
said, give yourself 10 good strategies to give yourself the best outcome.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I love his term about research, taking everybody's ideas and calling it research. If you take one person's ideas, it's stealing. But take a lot of people's ideas, it's research.
It's research.
Yeah.
I'm putting that on a shirt.
Yeah.
Goodness.
All right.
This was fascinating.
What a time.
Yeah.
This has been great. So we want to thank Mark for giving up a portion of his lunch to come here with us. And as he said, when he works at Microsoft, it's pretty busy there. Because he said to us off before we started taping that he was working with an audience in Asia. Yeah. And then he said that he's prepping for a keynote in Honolulu. Yeah. So if you are part of an organization or a company that sees value in what Mark does, reach out to him. I mean, he's got his social media links, and he will zoom in on you and virtually to do a presentation for your organization. Or if you want him face to face, he travels all over the world. He's very personable, and what a great resource to have and learn from.
And you can see on his social media some of his snippets of his keynote speaking on different stages of the world globally. And he has actually a snippet. I think it's a snippet from Goldie Hawn's foundation.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's from.
And he's pretty connected with it.
Yeah. So you can actually go on to his social media and see what he's done. But he's a huge advocate for emotional intelligence as an educator, first and foremost.
For sure.
For children and discovering emotional intelligence in that level of education before you even branch out as a father, as a partner, as start small.
Small.
Oh God.
All right. That's a wrap, buddy.
That's a wrap. This has been fascinating. And that wraps up today's episode of Coffee and Conversations for Men. Thanks for spending time with us. We truly appreciate it.
Be sure to check out the show notes for resources, links, and everything we covered today. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode.
And if you've enjoyed this conversation, share it with a friend or leave us a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts. You can also follow us on Instagram at Coffee and Conversations for Men. That's 4 as in the number 4.
Got a topic you'd like us to explore? Reach out and let us know. Just a quick reminder,
We're not therapists, counselors, or licensed professionals, just two longtime friends sharing real stories and lessons from our own lives.
So if you're facing challenges with your health, mental well-being, or relationships, we encourage you to seek guidance from qualified professionals.
We hope our conversation sparked reflection, encouraged growth, and helped you feel more connected.
Until next time, this is Jay and Brian reminding you to grab your coffee
Or your favorite drink.
and keep the conversation going. So stay strong
Stay curious.
and stay connected.